I am back with a new video on the Audi E-Tron car that just won the car. If you are not familiar with the car, or if you want to check out the car and some of the data available on it, I'm putting links below as usual so you can do your own research. There are many races around the world. I typically only watch two of them, and those are the Dakar race and also Le Mans. Dakar is in January. They start with the new year, and by mid to late January it's usually over. Le Mans is still going to take some time. They do it in June. And of course the two races are completely different. Dakar is a rally race. It is really exhausting and long, probably the longest one of all of them. They are right now in Saudi Arabia and doing a race of around 8,000 kilometers. That would be over 5,000 miles, or roughly like driving from New York to Miami and back twice, and then maybe driving down again or driving down halfway, something like that. The car, unlike NASCAR, which switched over to biofuels years ago, the car has been more of a struggle as far as alternative energy is concerned, and that's because of the distance of the race and the fact that cars have a great difficulty refueling. There are some options for a car to pull over and refuel, but I think that the time they lose is counted against them. So most cars just want to go through the whole 8,000 miles. And this Audi that won is remarkable because it is a series hybrid. It has an electric drivetrain. Electric motors are driving the car front and back, but this is not an electric car. Let's take a closer look at the specs. This is not the kind of parallel hybrid that you see almost everywhere else in commercial hybrid cars. A parallel hybrid means that you have a small electric drivetrain next to a traditional gasoline drivetrain, and the car just switches back and forth between the two. This is very heavy and complicated, unnecessarily so in my opinion. What we see here is a series hybrid, although an all-wheel drive car. So a series hybrid doesn't have a separate gasoline car and electric car built into one, but there is just a battery feeding energy to the motors, but there is also a generator that feeds energy to the battery, and that basically makes the car just like any other gasoline car. You can refill it as many times as you need to, and you can go as far as you want to go. In this case, this is an all-wheel drive setup, so you're dealing with two motors, which should make it a bit heavier, but the total weight of 2 tons is really not bad. For a car of this size, I would say this is very similar to what you would get from a truck-based SUV in the US, a commercially available SUV, or many of the pickup trucks that are on the market. Because of the extremely long range of this race, and because cars typically do not refuel, they just go through the whole 8,000 miles without doing much of any stopping. I mean, there are some short stops, but I think refueling options are really limited, and if you do, that time is going to count against you. So you're not going to win the race if you're doing too much refueling. In this case, they wanted to go through the whole distance with just whatever energy they could store in the battery and in the fuel tank as well. Fuel tank is quite large but not exorbitant, and I would say overall the package is a very reasonable weight package. Now, the advantage over other cars is that this car has brake regeneration, both front and rear. On my electrified Brompton, I just have front end regeneration. according to my observation, it gives me maybe an extra 12 to 15% of range because of this. So maybe if you have double regeneration front and rear, that could give you maybe even more. So this could be quite a significant gain in energy efficiency compared to everybody else. Now, the other advantage is the extreme torque of an electric propulsion system. Because the Saudi track is full of sand dunes and little hills that the participants have to drive up on, and some of them are insanely steep. If you watch some of the videos, I recommend that you check them out. This terrain is really extremely hilly and difficult to tackle, and so on that kind of a terrain, the electric propulsion, which is so torquey, is going to help a lot when accelerating and tackling uphills to not lose time and to maintain traction. And on the other side of the hill, you can regenerate energy. So I think this is a really neat car. Overall, the styling of it is really good. Audi very rarely brings out cars, I mean every once in a while, but for the most part, their cars are pretty bland looking, I would say. Nothing earth-shaking. It would be nice if they integrated some design elements from this prototype into some of the SUVs and crossovers that they are selling. Although maybe the typical Audi customer does not like that. I'm not crazy about their styling, to be honest. As far as the significance of this car winning, and winning by a long shot, I think this car came in almost an hour and a half earlier than the next best car, which was a modified Toyota, and no surprises there. But I would say that after this car winning, how can anybody ever win the car with a standard gasoline car? And what about the other races? Are the people at Le Mans going to take notice? What about the average car on the street, the commercially available cars? Are we going to see a commercial distribution of serious hybrid systems like this, either from Audi or from anybody else? This is very interesting because I just don't see how you could win a race with a pure gasoline car from now on. And I don't think there's any race that's longer than this one. So I think this is going to spread as an example. Building a fully electric car for the kind of races that Dakar and also Le Mans are is probably a little bit of a long shot. If you buy a Tesla, you can refuel anytime you want to. There are refueling stations all over the country, but as far as these long races, you can't really do that. You cannot pull over and spend 40 minutes charging up. So a pure electric car is not going to work, but this one is working, and I think this could have a major effect on the industry as a whole. Very interesting. Now I'm going to show you another video showing this Tesla owner who modified his Tesla car, adding a generator which he himself made for it. It's really not necessary for a Tesla because there are enough charging stations around, but once again, there are some third parties or enthusiasts, private people who innovate much better than the car companies that make the cars. And I'm expecting that probably the big companies are just going to ignore that. But can they ignore the car winner like this Audi? I don't know. Check out the links again and check out the car if you have not been following this race. It's a fascinating race to follow, and it'll be interesting to see what comes at Le Mans in June. This is it for the current video, and I'll be back in a few days.